So I had us ask the question in our discussion about what is writing. It's a funny thing to pose to someone. What does the word writing actually mean? How would you define it if you had to write down a definition? It's one of those words that we all know what it means. We can all use this word, but when you're asked to actually write a definition of it, it's a little difficult. You have to think for a second about what it really means. It's not as difficult as if I asked you to define the word the. You could take a minute to yourself now and think, how would I write a definition of the word the? It's pretty difficult. You could look it up in a dictionary if you want to see how the dictionary actually makes an effort to define that word. The word writing is a little easier to define, but it's still interesting. You have to think about it for a second. One of the main points I want to make in this section about the origins of writing is for us to realize that writing began much later than speaking did. People, as soon as you start to think about this, it becomes obvious, but most people haven't really thought about how human beings spoke language for much longer than they've written it. So, writing is an invention that's a technology to record speech. And it arrives at a much later period of time than the invention of speech. And in fact, as far as I can tell, people are still quite vague about where speech started. Did it start in many different areas of the world? How long ago did it start? These are really hard questions to answer about speech. However, we do have a little more information about where writing started. It now looks like it started in several places. The one that I'll talk about most is in the civilization of Sumer in Mesopotamia, which is modern day Iraq, more or less. This appears so far to be the oldest location in which writing started. And they believe it's somewhere around 3000 BC. And, there's scholars discuss other places writing may have started. It seems pretty clear that writing started in China independently. It started in the Americas independently as well. Some people also say Egypt, invented its own system of writing without any influence from Sumer. Other people say the Egyptians got it from the Sumerians. I'm not really sure. You could do a whole research paper on this if you want, and there's a lot of lively discussion about it. But it's just interesting to think, why did we decide to set things down? Instead of just speaking to each other, there must have been some need to set down the language that people were speaking. So, consider that idea. We'll take a look at this YouTube video about Sumer and how the first writing system may have arisen there. Some of the needs that writing addresses are, what occurs to you as you just think about it? Writing has certain powers that speaking does not, right? As soon as we speak a word, it's gone almost as soon as we speak it. So speech is kind of here and then fading away always. But when you set something down, you now have, in a way, a time capsule of that bit of language. So this language can be passed down easily between the generations. It could last for hundreds of years as a piece of writing. It could last for thousands of years, right? And it has a kind of permanence to it. So as we go through this course, thinking about how to write better, just be conscious of this basic idea that in the beginning we had a speaker. Humans could speak. They all could speak, and then they could also listen. That was the original audience. Sitting around a campfire, I have this graphic I'll put up. We have people, telling stories around a fire, discussing the laws of the tribe, or maybe they would be called rules or social mores, right? How how did was it allowed to hurt someone? Was it allowed to kill someone? Probably not in your own tribe, although you might murder people from another tribe in those days, right? Did people get married in a way at this time of history? All of these things would have been talked about, and there would have been rules for the tribe passed down between generations. But think, none of it was ever set down, right? So it had to be remembered and passed from parents to children. And those children had their own children and would have to pass it on to them. And if anything was forgotten, it would be lost. There was no writing to kind of set things down in stone, so to speak. So just think of that as the world that we human beings come from, and what might have been the needs of people in these prehistoric times to start to use writing. And interestingly, I'll put up another graphic or two here. People think that painting actually came before writing. So some of the earliest, I guess you could call it art, that we have is actually imagery, not written language. I believe some of the oldest caves they've discovered with cave painting in them are 30,000 years old, possibly older. So we have these prehistoric people beginning to paint, and it looks like writing as a system didn't come along until, as I said earlier, Sumer, which is an agricultural civilization. So quite different than the sort of much simpler cave lifestyle of the prehistoric people that I've been showing in these pictures. And, perhaps the needs of a civilization with all of its record keeping about agriculture, about grain, about cattle, that gave rise to the need for writing. So the YouTube video I'm going to put up will say more about this. And, I just thought it'd be interesting to have a writing exercise where we got a little creative and thought, what was it actually like to live in a world where writing is being invented for the first time? It's not something that, from our point of view in the 21st century, it's something that humanity's been doing for thousands of years. But at one time, it was a new invention, a new technology. So that's just an interesting idea to keep in mind. And I think I'll cut this video off here, and I'll put up a separate one about tone and audience. And we'll move forward through the week. Thanks.